Oh, yeah.
Amy Cuddy has been ranked one of the top 50 women changing the world by Business Insider. She's a Harvard professor, and she studies social psychology. Her TED Talk has over 27 million views. It's actually the #2 TED Talk ever. This is the Power Wonder Woman pose. She studies power positions. And what she's found is that in scientific studies, if you stand in one of these powerful positions, open, expansive gestures like these, that before you head into a meeting or an interview, your confidence increases, your stress levels go down, and you're actually perceived as more competent. Now I'll let that soak in, because I'm going to stand here for 2 minutes so that I feel really good to get through the rest of this presentation. Her name is Amy Cuddy. And today, we're going to be talking about authority and power and the way to create a lasting impression. There are some women who are so memorable, you can't forget them even after they've walked out of the room. They're dynamic, they're charismatic, they're stylish, and you want to be like them. Let's take the example of Audrey Hepburn. She's known for her fashion, her film, and even just her mannerisms and style. I'm going to challenge you that by the end of this hour, you can be the one to remember in your field. So dynamic and charismatic that even after you walk out of that room, people are still talking about you. Today, I'm going to go through 3 ways to increase your authority. The first step to increasing your authority, number 1, is to pick your niche. The second step to building your authority is to showcase your credibility. And step number 3 is to communicate your story consistently. As I walk us through these 3 phases, we're going to learn how to position ourselves as the #1 authority in our marketplace. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm known as the authority architect because I help to build plans for entrepreneurs who want to take their authority from here to here. I do this by creating blueprints using a method called the 7 pillars of authority marketing. I coach entrepreneurs. To date, I've coached over 300 different entrepreneurs in this exact process. They fly to Charleston, and we go through this method to understand how to grow their business and to attract more customers to their entrepreneurship venture. Prior to working at Advantage Media Group, I worked in innovation. And I know that having a creative message is the way to resonate with different markets. But there's other things aside from creativity. There's credibility, there's associations, and other things that we're going to work through today. I speak about this very topic in countries across the world. Specifically, I went on a tour last year, 12 different cities, where we talked about how to position yourself as the authority in your market. And just next month, I'm flying to Baltimore to speak for the Women's Presidents Organization, and I'm giving this talk at their national conference. So what's the difference between being an authority and having power? Sometimes these 2 topics are used synonymously, but they're actually quite different. Having power is what you have. It's the ability to control or influence others. Now contrast that with having authority, which is the right to influence and control others. It's a small distinction, but having authority means that you have the why. Why are you the person that they're going to listen to? Why should somebody follow your voice? This is the respect that you earn from various accolades, credibility indicators, distinctions, and other things throughout your experience that justify why you have to say what you have to say. I often use the term thought leadership when we talk about authority marketing. And thought leadership is the concept of putting out a unique perspective on a common topic. And so to be a true authority in your space, you have to have perspective. You can't be the person who repeats what others have said. In order to have true authority, you have to reach out to those in your niche and explain what your perspective is on the trends, the styles, and the news of today. The first step in building your authority is to pick your niche. The riches are in the niches is a common phrase that I love to use. And the reason is that certain objects, especially large objects, appear bigger in very small spaces. How many of you have seen this? You go over to maybe a friend's house who has a medium-sized apartment, and they've got a couch that looks like it's taken up the whole room. And then they move maybe a year later to a bigger house. They need to upgrade. They're building their family. And all of a sudden, this huge couch that nobody can get around being put in a larger room looks very, very small, right? It's all about perspective. It's about creating a niche where you become the center focus, right? One mistake that entrepreneurs make is that they don't want to limit themselves, and they think, I will just be an expert on a broad topic. I'm going to be the top expert in sales. I'm going to be the top expert in healthcare. Well, you and 47 million other people, right? It becomes very, very hard to be the top expert in such a broad area. So what you have to do is focus. Be willing to commit to the things that you love to talk about and that you know others in your area love to talk about. So I'm going to give you a framework where you can actually figure out what is your niche, and I'll give you my example so you can see what I've done. The framework that I use is a very simple one. It's 3 circles. And my assertion is that in order for you to create a niche, you likely have multiple areas where you're passionate. It might be fine wine, it might be golf, it might be marketing, it might be sales. But I encourage you to take those very large topics and find a way to pull them down. And one of the tests that I use in picking my topics is to figure out what you're going to geek out on. What are those topics that you know like the back of your hand? And anytime you go to a cocktail party or a networking event, you think, oh, nobody else is interested in this, just me, right? I know all about the upcoming shows on Netflix. I know all about the wines in France. I know all about traveling to Nevada. It doesn't matter what it is, just that it's a topic that you can wax on about for days and days and days on end, right? And so once you have your topics, you begin to see how they can overlap. Let me walk you through how I picked my topics. The first one is women's leadership. I realized that on a given weekend, I was scrolling through blogs for common women leaders. I attend women's conferences. I enjoy working with other women. I hire many of them. And I found that I kept repeating these same types of questions of, how did you get into the position that you're in? How did you get promoted? What type of leadership style do you have? And I found that I'm gaining all these resources, TED Talks, podcasts, books. And I realized that as I came upon somebody else who maybe didn't know as much about the topic of women's leadership, I kept sending them emails. Here's a resource. Here's a link to a book that I read. Here's a podcast that I listened to. And I found that this is something I love to talk about, and I could talk about for days. The second topic that I consider one of my areas of expertise is business books. I work for Advantage Media Group, which is a business book publisher, so I get to do what I love to do. I spend my weekends going to Barnes & Noble. I went last weekend, I'm scanning the business book section, looking for books, and I sit over in the Starbucks, and I start to leaf through which ones I'm going to take home to my shelf. I realized that I scan through different lists. I'm on Goodreads, which is a social network for those who read different books. I see some nods. And I know that this is something that anywhere I go, I don't want to know what shows you've seen recently. I want to know what books you've read. And so this puts me in a little bit of a different camp. My third area we're talking about today, authority marketing. It's the niche that I talk about in my speeches. It's what I study. I actually look online for other people who are practicing the art of promoting a person in order to grow a business. I think authority marketing is cultivating your personal perspective, putting it out into the world, and positioning yourself not just the average Joe, but as the top expert in your field. And it's amazing the change that you'll see when you have that authority positioning because you're so confident in what you do. And some of that confidence comes from the fact that now we've niched down, right? There are going to be other experts in the field of women's leadership, in business books, and in authority marketing. But when you look at all three of those together, I'm the top expert, right? There's not many people who are in the field of studying this one little niche. And that's what I want you to do as well. Find the topics that you can connect with other people on, any of these three, but when you start to bring them together, suddenly there's not as many people who see the trends in between them. And then you become the thought leader. You become the person who's the #1 expert in your niche. So take a moment right now and write down a few of the topics that you absolutely love to talk about, that you geek out about seeing the latest trend, reading the latest blog post, or understanding it. And as you do that, consider where some of the overlap is and how you could create a voice and a thought leadership brand in that niche area. While you're doing that, I have a free gift for you. I know that I personally love business books. I love women's leadership. I love authority marketing. So one of the tools that I created is a list of the top best business books about or by executive women. And I want to give this to you as a free resource. And I want to show you a really cool new piece of technology that you can use when you speak or when you attend events. Grab your cell phone. Everybody pull out your little cell phone right here. I want to teach you about a new technology. Open up your internet browser. Just open up an internet window, and you're going to go to the website Kiwi, like the fruit, kiwilive.com. And something magical is going to happen. Immediately, you're going to be asked to give a word. And the word that I've chosen is power. So enter in the word power to the website kiwilive.com, and you will be immediately connected to me. You'll get an email with all my contact information in case you have questions or want to follow up. You can see my social channels. You can follow me on Pinterest. And that way we can connect. And you'll also be able to download a copy of my PDF of the best reads for executive women in business books. Quick and easy, really fun way to connect on social, very low barrier to entry. I encourage you to use this tool in your businesses as well. Hello. How many of you remember this moment?
How many of you remember the song over and over and over in your head?
It plays all the time. This was actually taken of Adele in 2012 when she won 6 Grammys. Look at her. She has so many Grammys, she can't even hold all of the Grammys. In her niche, which happens to be music, the Grammy is the pinnacle award. She has earned the top honor in her field. Step 2 of creating your authority brand is making sure you're showcasing the credibility indicators that you have that are relevant to your niche. So in music, it's a Grammy. If Adele has a degree in Spanish, that doesn't matter, right? Great that she has a degree, it's probably not even in Spanish. But it is important that she has these awards and accolades. List out what are the things that you have in your background, whether they are credibility indicators like a job title, a position, a track record of where you've been successful. Perhaps it's an experience that you've had. You've had the chance to work with a certain caliber of company. It's an association. You're a membership of the Center for Women, perhaps a member of the American Marketing Association. Perhaps you've graduated from a prestigious university, or you've earned another distinction, like a local award or publicity mention. All of these things are credibility indicators. And what you have to do is to decide which ones you're going to put on your shelf. because you don't want your shelf to be cluttered. You want your Grammys to have nice space so that people can see them when they come over. And you want to make sure that you're highlighting the ones that matter the most to the people in your niche. Because ultimately, in order to be an authority, to be a leader, you have to have a tribe that's going to start to follow you. You can't be a leader in a vacuum, empty room. So think about the things that you're going to use to attract others in building your authority brand. Step 3, telling your story. Many people confuse authority marketing with the idea of self-promotion. I don't want to put my face out there. I don't want a headshot. I don't want to have to stand there looking really funny at the front of the room. It's not about self-promotion or getting a specific job. Think of it as storytelling. How can I tell my stories, my brand, in a consistent way so that people understand what I'm about, so they know what drives me, and they find it compelling enough to want to open up a dialogue or potentially follow in my footsteps. I'm going to walk through 6 elements that you can include in your creative storytelling. You don't have to use them all, but I encourage you to think through them and then select which one makes the most sense for you. The first, how could we have a conversation about a dynamic woman without referencing Oprah, right? She is like the banner of authority marketing. So her positioning, when you look at her storytelling, is around her mission. She's made it very, very public that her mission is to teach and inspire others. And that makes sense. So the fact that she has the Oprah Winfrey Show, now she's a producer, she's an owner of her own network, she has a magazine, she's even created a school for girls in underprivileged countries. Everything that she does is about giving back, teaching, and inspiring others. And so all throughout her communications, you see this concept of her mission. What's your mission? What are the things that drive you and make you tick, that if you shared them with other people, that would attract them to you and make them want to follow you or engage with you in some way? The second is a local example. So last year, I decided to enroll in a boot camp. And there's one in Charleston called Women's Fat Blasting Boot Camp. And the owner is Kendall Boyle. Now, Kendall has made her vision very public. And let me explain what the difference is between a mission and a vision. A mission is why you do what you do, right? It's your why. A vision is where you're going to aspire to reach. It's your target. So if you decide to head up that mountain, what does the peak look like? What is your vision? What are you hoping to achieve? Is it $1 million in revenue? Is it reaching out to 5,000 people and creating a movement? Whatever your vision is, you just have to have a destination. And I'll say that your vision can evolve. Once you reach that first goal, you can change and evolve as well. Kendall's mission is to help 5,000 women in the Charleston area to lose 150,000 pounds collectively. Whew. That is a big mission. But when I saw that online and I'm considering her versus someone else, I think, I want to be a part of that. I want to be one of those women. I want to be a part of what she's working on. So how can you do that in your brand? How can you create a bigger goal and vision for other people that they then want to join in with what you're doing? The third is philosophy. Jessica Alba, known for her movies, she's a well-known actress, has actually been on the cover of late of many Fortune magazines because she has a company called Honest. And their philosophy is providing better products. They specialize in baby products. But what they believe and what she believes and has distributed throughout the company is her philosophy to do better. It's very short, doesn't have to be long, but her philosophy of doing better means that they produce eco-friendly bubble bath for children, that they donate a portion of their proceeds to charities who are in need. She's looking for every opportunity she can to infiltrate her philosophy. It's not about a certain amount of revenue, right? It's not the vision. It's the philosophy that anybody who does business with her should uphold as well. So I want you to take the time to think, what's my philosophy? How do I do my business? I know what you do, but how do you do it that's different from other people? The next one is journey. This is an amazing story. Malala is the youngest ever recipient of the Nobel Laureate Prize. Her journey, she's a Pakistani feminist activist. She was shot directly in the face and survived the bullet wound because she decided to stand up that women and young girls deserve to be educated. She uses this incredible experience that nobody expected her to live through as part of her communication and advocacy. Her journey is helping her to build her platform. And what I'll tell you is that your journey doesn't have to be this dramatic. Hers was incredible, but so is yours. If you've had certain experiences, you've lived through obstacles, you've overcome barriers, then you've had an experience that someone else hasn't had. And it's your job to share that with them. And it can bring light and attention to the other things that you're trying to champion. So think about how your experiences, your journey, and your story can really be told to attract others to listen to your message. Science. This is another technique for telling your story. How many of you know who Elizabeth Holmes is? See a few faces here? Yes? She's 30 years old and a billionaire. $4.7 billion is how much she's worth. The reason is because a few short years ago, she created something called Edison. Edison is a finger prick technology that can be used to diagnose various diseases. And the great thing about Edison is that it reduces the amount of time needed to diagnose. And so it can be used the world over. And the valuation of her company has shot up enormously. She's the founder of a company called Theranos that uses Edison in many different ways. Now, you don't have to be somebody who's patented a technology or invented something. But if you have a process, a method, a formula, a specific approach for how you do what you do, then you can resonate with other people who need your approach. So think if you had to say, there's a 5-step model for doing what I do, what would your 5 steps be? And who might value learning what those 5 steps are in your niche? Think about how your process, your science, what you know and what you've learned can be useful to somebody else. The last one is tribe. We all want a tribe. In the world of social media today, we look at how many followers we have, we check to see how many times we've been liked on our picture, and how many thumbs ups we've gotten since the last time we've checked in. It's not about the volume, it's about the engagement. But this is the story of Sophia Amoroso. She's known as the girl boss. Her company, she's the CEO of Nasty Gal, a very unconventional name in fashion. She started it because she had 2 areas of expertise. She loved thrift store shopping, and she loved eBay. Now you think about it, how many people are an expert in those 2 things? 1. Her company, $100 million, 350 employees, astronomical 1,000% growth year over year. She's experiencing so much success because of a tribe. The technique that she used when she founded her company was to go onto a social network. In this case, it was back in the days of MySpace. And she manually added 60,000 friends. Oh my gosh, think about all the time that takes. But what are the value of connection, right? When the site shut her down and eBay said you can no longer sell your goods on our site, she had 60,000 friends who wanted to be her customer. She put up her storefront online and immediately been able to sell out. So she used the power of a tribe, building connections with people, but also telling others that the tribe was that big. How many times have you been attracted to another person because you see how many other people have liked their post? Or how many other people are following them on Twitter? Or even how many other people are just circling around them in the lunchroom? I mean, there's an attraction when you see people who are popular and who identify as a tribe. And so there are many different tribes, right? For her, it was people who value vintage fashion at a low price. You might be part of a tribe like mompreneurs, or rebel rednecks, or lawyers. It doesn't matter what your tribe is, but you're going to project how you exemplify the characteristics of that tribe so people can understand you and understand that you're becoming a leader in that tribe. The last point that I want to make is that it's not just one person who can be the authority, right? We can all create our authority brands because we're talking about the 3 niches that we each have an expertise in. And so my 3 niches are going to be different from your 3 niches and different from your 3 niches. But when you get us all in a room together, like the top 3 executives of Net-a-Porter, suddenly you've got a dynamic, powerful bench. So I would like to challenge you and say, think not only how you can create your own authority brand, but also how you can build up other women to have their authority brand as well. Because when there's more than one of us, there's plenty of room for us all to be an authority in our niche. With that, I want to say thank you and hand it off to my colleague, Doreen Sullivan.